Greetings, one and all. Hello, hello. Welcome to this webinar. I think I titled it Building Better Habits, but I was just reflecting a little bit on the fact that when I plan out my webinars, I have a topic in mind, and then you have to give it a title when you market it to people. Sometimes I forget the title of my own webinars. Anyway, I think that's what I titled it. So here you go. It says at the bottom of the screen. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Like I was typing in the chat, I always love to see people introduce themselves in the chat. So if you're here, just go in the chat and say, hello, I am name, and I live in city. I really like to see that. So for example, I see hello, Rob, Jerry, Bernd, Martin, Walter, Carla, Stacy, Sue. Oh, hey, these are familiar names, some of these. That's very good to see. I see that Martin wrote a message about a Spitfire, which I think a lot of people are probably confused about. But if you've been to one of my earlier webinars, or if you have maybe watched some of my videos or taken some of my courses, you'll know that one of the things on my someday list is to fly in a Spitfire. So that's what Martin is referring to, for those of you who are confused. Anyway, thanks everybody for saying hi. This is the Building Better Habits webinar. I'll try to keep this to about an hour or so. Try and teach you as much as I can today. There'll be some Q&A as well. But first, I just want to tell you the app we're in right now is Webinar Ninja. There's a chat on the right, so you can chat in there. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the chat, but it's really hard to give enough attention to the chat to respond while I'm also teaching stuff. So if you have a question, please ask the question in the question box below. So if you scroll down below me, you'll see that there's a questions option. There's also an offers option, which we'll get to later. Oh, hey, hello, Niels. I know Niels from a long time ago. Someone I went to high school with. Look at that. That's exciting. Welcome, welcome. So if you have a question, you could post it in the chat, but good chance that I will miss it if you post it in the chat. So better to post it actually as a question using the questions feature in Webinar Ninja. For example, I've got a question from Rob Clark already. He says, how about Max Verstappen? That's not really a question, but I do like what Max Verstappen did in Formula One the other day. But that's got nothing to do with building better habits. So why don't we start talking about habits, because that's what you guys are here for. Got some slides for you today, because it's easier to learn when it's audio and visual, blah, 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 blah. Okay, what's the agenda for today? Tell you a little bit about who I am, try to keep it short. And then we're going to talk about building better habits. And we're kind of going to do that in 3 parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about goals versus habits. Then I want to talk about how to make it easy to build a habit, how to just make it easier on yourself, because sometimes we just make it really hard. It's unnecessary. And then I want to talk specifically about how you can take action on your habits, because a lot of times people are like, I would love to establish the habit of blank, but then how do you actually take action on it? So we're going to talk about that. Then there'll be a Q&A section where you will ask questions. I will provide answers. Finally, I'll just wrap up and I'll tell you a little bit about an offer that I have for you today regarding my latest course, Big Picture Productivity. So that's the agenda. Now, real quick, who am I? My name is Peter Akis. I am a former litigation consultant turned productivity teacher. These days, I sell 3 productivity courses. I've now had over 800 students in my courses. And for the eagle-eyed, or what's an animal with really good ears? I don't know, fox-eared among you, you may notice that that's different, because 2 weeks ago, it was 700 plus students. I just hit 800, so it's exciting for me. The 3 courses that I have created for you guys are Organize Your Life with Things 3, which is an overview of the app Things 3, but more importantly, a workflow around the app that you can use to be more organized and more productive. Get Stuff Done with OmniFocus 3, same thing, except with OmniFocus. And then my latest course, which is titled Big Picture Productivity, which is all about achieving your goals and really taking action on your goals. And I'll tell you a bit more about Big Picture Productivity at the end of the webinar. Some of my other interests include scuba diving. Not doing much scuba diving these days, unfortunately, due to coronavirus, public speaking, veganism, Formula One, and the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's me. I love that people in the, oh, look at that. People, Stacy in the chat says that OmniFocus 3 is fantastic. And so is my course on OmniFocus 3. Thanks, Stacy, for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's talk about building better habits. And I want to start with the difference between goals and habits, because that's so important to get straight on this key difference. So we all want things, yeah? So some things that people, that are common that people want include losing weight, meditating daily, journaling regularly. I hear a lot of people say, you know what, I want to give more attention to my kids. Like I want to spend more time with my kids. And these are all great things, or can be great things to want, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's great. Everybody wants things. That's what life is about. We want things and then we do things to try and get those things, right? There's a very basic level. That's how life works. But if people tend to phrase those things in terms of goals, but goals themselves do absolutely zip nothing whatsoever. Goals are just intentions. So if your intention is to lose weight, yeah, that's great, but that doesn't actually help you lose weight. Just like wanting it does nothing. Um, and a funny thing to think about is that winners and losers, so people who succeed at achieving a goal and people who do not, they hold the same intention, right? So if we draw the analogy to Formula One, one driver wins and he had the goal of winning, but all the other 19 drivers also wanted to win. They had the exact same goal of winning, but they did not win. So just because you want something doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? I mean, this seems really obvious, but I think sometimes we forget this. So by their nature, goals are vague and they're just things you want, but they're not like a blueprint, right, for how to get there. And they certainly are not action steps. So how do you act on a goal like, I want to give my kids more attention? So goals require motivation. If you're really focused on your goal, let's say you want to lose 20 kilograms, right? You might, one weekend, you might say, listen, I gained a little bit too much weight. I want to gain 20 kilograms or lose 20 kilograms in the next year or something like that, right? So first of all, you cannot do something like this in one weekend. Sort of most meaningful goals are not things that you can really achieve in one weekend, 1 week, or maybe even a month. And you may get these temporary flashes of motivation. So you may be thinking, oh, wow, I'm really motivated to lose weight. This week, I'm not going to eat any desserts. I'm going to go for a run and whatever. And so you're really motivated, but that's temporary. Like there'll be other times when you will not be motivated. And it also requires willpower. So when you're very goal focused, you're kind of trying to sort of like will your way into doing things. I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to try really hard and do this and this. The problem is that when you try to use willpower to solve your problems, to achieve your goals in this case, it's not sustainable. It requires way too much effort and you just cannot do it time after time. So instead of focusing really hard on goals, I would like you to focus on habits, okay? And you're here to learn how to build better habits. So hopefully you're doing this already. But it's just a little bit of a change of focus, just shifting your perspective a little bit. So I read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and maybe some of you have read this as well. And he's sort of very good at explaining exactly like how does habit formation work. And so I'll be sharing some of the things that I learned from him in this webinar. This webinar really is more about actually implementing the advice that, for example, people like James Clear give. But if you want to get really, really deep on it, Atomic Habits, great book, recommend it. So James Clear says, listen, a habit is just a behavior that's been repeated enough times to become automatic. That's all that a habit is. So you and I, like all of us, we already have a gazillion habits. Like most of our life is just going through habits. So the key point here is that habits are automatic. Think about some of the things that you already do automatically. I mean, do you consciously brush your teeth? Like when you're brushing your teeth at night, are you thinking, upper teeth, back of the upper teeth, lower teeth? I mean, sometimes I am more present and sometimes I am less present, but certainly like the picking up of the toothbrush, I'm not like, now I'm going to pick up my toothbrush. That's just something that happens. It's automatic. It's a habit. I do it. Same thing with making coffee in the morning with my breakfast. I just kind of go through the motions, not in a bad way, but it just happens. It's on autopilot, right? So I'm often not super conscious that I'm doing that. And so the question is, how can you make this autopilot mode engage for the things that you want, your goals? For example, if we go back to wanting to lose weight, how can you make that go on autopilot so you don't constantly have to like use your willpower to make it happen? You can do that by focusing on the habits rather than the goals, focusing on making it a habit rather than focusing on what you want. So, working out once is not going to make you lose much weight. Working out twice won't either, but working out 3 times a week for a year will. It will help you lose weight. So rather than thinking of your job as lose 20 kilos or, journal for a year, whatever your goal is, the thing that you want, think of your job as to establish a habit. That is your job. Your job is not to get the result. Your job is to make the habit a thing, right? To make the behavior a habit. So in the case of losing weight, your job is to make working out a habit. Bit of a different perspective. So I'm going to give you 3 to-dos today. And to-do number 1 is really think in terms of habits, not just goals. Great to have goals. We all have goals, no problem. But when you think about achieving them, focus on the habit that you could do or the behavior that you can do that you want to turn into an automatic thing, that you want to turn into a habit, rather than only being so laser focused on what you want. Because knowing what you want, again, that's not going to get you there. It's all about what you do to get there. So let's talk next about how to make it super easy to build a habit. And then in the third part, we'll translate that into how to actually do that in your task manager. Because I think a lot of you know me because I teach a lot about how to use task managers effectively. But first, let's just talk about how to make it easy to build a habit, and then we'll translate that to task manager land. So I will use the framework that James Clear teaches in Atomic Habits, or teaches whatever that describes in Atomic Habits. It's a bit arbitrary. Doesn't matter. I just want to share some general tips for you or with you for building habits. The tips themselves are not really the point, though. The point is what you do with them. I mean, you can look up all the advice in the world on how to establish better habits, right? So I'll summarize some of the key things here, but really the key point is, okay, now you know how to build a habit. How are you actually going to do it, right? As opposed to knowing how and learning, how do you translate that into action? So that's the step number 3. But let's talk a little bit about how to make it easy to build a habit. And I'm speaking in this webinar about building better habits, but you can invert it and to get rid of negative habits. Let's say you smoke a couple of cigarettes every day. You want to get rid of that habit. Exactly the same things apply. You just have to invert all the advice, basically. Just invert all the language, okay? But I'll leave that for your mental exercise if that's something that you want to do. So to make building a habit much easier, there are kind of 4 things you can do. And again, I'm taking these from James Clear, but it's again, somewhat arbitrary, just a handy framework for thinking about it. You want to make the act itself, the behavior that you want to turn into a habit, you want to make it obvious that that's a thing that you want to do. I'll talk more about that in a minute. You want to make it attractive to do it in the moment, like the behavior that you want to turn into a habit. You want it to be attractive in the moment. You want to make it really easy for yourself in the moment to do that behavior, and you want to make it satisfying. So you want to get to a place where after you did it, it's satisfying. When something is already a habit, like brushing your teeth, you don't need an extra incentive to brush your teeth. But when there is a behavior that you want to turn into a habit, you may need to help yourself a little bit and give yourself kind of a reward for doing it. So that's the satisfying part. Let's talk about these 4 in a little bit more detail. So first, you just want to make it really clear, like make it obvious what it is that you want to do and make it be present in your world. So one way to do that is you can just declare your intention to do it. I mean, this could be a declaring to your partner, to your journal, and you're literally just saying, I will do thing at time in location. So get super specific. I will do 10 push-ups at 3 p.m. in the living room. Boom, that's my intention. Write this in your journal, say it to your partner, but be super specific. So not like, yeah, I'm gonna be meditating, or like, yeah, I'm gonna be doing push-ups every day. No, super specific, okay? Like, what are you gonna do, exactly what, and when and where, okay? And so for habits, daily is a good frequency for many habits, right? Not every habit that you want to establish is going to be a daily thing, but a lot of them are daily. So if they're not daily, no problem. Just say, I will do this every Sunday afternoon, whatever. Just get super specific about it. And that's kind of a theme. I don't know if you've been to some of my earlier webinars, like being really specific and thinking really precisely. If there's only one thing I could teach you, is like be more specific about stuff. That just generally helps being more productive. Great. So Another thing you can do to make a habit super obvious is to stack your habits, to kind of develop a chain of habits. And that's just saying, after I do this, I will do that. So as an example, you can say, after putting the dinner dishes away, I will journal at my desk. So putting the dinner dishes away, let's say that's something that you do every day anyway, you can just say, hey, after I do that every day, I will sit down at my desk to journal. And putting the dinner dishes away is kind of your cue to start doing this new thing, the new behavior, in this case, the journaling, that you want to turn into a habit. Another thing you can do to make it obvious is to just change your environment a little bit. And so one thing you can do is put your phone out of reach. And this is kind of a example of getting rid of a negative habit. So I find myself sometimes mindlessly scrolling Twitter. I mean, I'm working on a task and I feel some resistance. I don't want to do it because it requires a lot of hard thinking. And I will grab my phone and just start browsing Twitter, because browsing Twitter is fun and dopamine and all that stuff, right? But that's a habit, that's a bad habit that I like to get rid of. So I want to make it really obvious when I'm doing that. So by putting my phone slightly out of reach, so maybe on the far side of my desk or a little bit behind me or whatever, right? When I get that urge to grab my phone and browse Twitter, I have to maybe turn around, or I have to reach over really far, or even get up. Maybe it's in the other room. And just the act of doing that is like a snap, and I'm in the moment again of, oh, hey, I'm currently trying to get to my phone to hide from my work by browsing Twitter. So it makes it really obvious what you're doing and what you should not be doing in this case, okay? So those are just some things you can do to make the habit that you want to build, or I guess the bad habit you want to get rid of, make it really obvious and have it be top of mind, okay? And again, these are just some tips. The specifics here don't really matter. Again, you can go read Atomic Habits. You can come up with a lot of things yourself for like making it easier to build a habit. I'm going through them to give you some ideas, which will be really important in part 3. So one of my students shared this with me the other day, and he's in the community that actually, and now I have a community that goes along with my course, Big Picture Productivity. And he's one of my students who is in the community there. I'll tell you a bit more about the community later. And he was sharing the following. He says, basically, he has this nice chain of habits that he does every morning, which is just a really easy way for him to sort of hit a couple of things that he wants to do without any effort at all. It's totally automatic. It really became a habit. So what he does is he wakes up and gets coffee and makes and eats breakfast. And immediately after that, he sits down with his notebook and plans his day. It's just like, done with breakfast, grab the notebook, plan day. After he does that, the planning of his day, he sits down, or I guess he continues to sit down, writes in his journal. He says it's usually just a few lines of thought on how he's feeling, okay? Then what he does is he'll actually go and meditate. After he meditates, he goes for a walk, then he gets to work. And this is just a chain. It happens this way. No effort required, okay? But there's a few lovely things in here, like sitting down with your notebook, planning your day, being really deliberate about what you're going to work on. Fantastic habit to have. Journaling a little bit. Fantastic habit. Meditating, the best habit. The best habit, okay? So going for a walk, also really great. But see, it doesn't require any willpower this way. It's just a nice little chain, and it's become routine. It's become automatic. So I was really happy to see this. You can also make the behavior that you want to develop into a habit attractive. What do I mean by that? I mean, make it attractive in the moment to do it, right? And the key way to do this is temptation bundling. So it's kind of like giving yourself a little reward. You know, saying, so, okay, here's the thing that I don't want to do. Like I want to get to inbox 0, so I want to process some emails, or I should be calling some potential clients to try and make more sales. Like, I should do it, but I don't really want to do it. Like, I want to turn that into an automatic thing. Every day I just process my emails, or every day I call a few clients. Just reward yourself for doing it. It's pretty obvious, right? After you process 10 emails, you can watch Formula One race highlights. It's one that I like to use. Right after you eat lunch, okay, next thing you do, I'm going to call 3 clients or email 3 potential clients, right? Try and make some sales. Okay. And then I get to do whatever fun thing. So temptation bundling is just like when you're trying to develop a behavior into a habit, when you're in that phase of turning it into a habit, give yourself a reward for doing it. Now, I mean, like I said, brushing your teeth is already a habit for you. So you don't need to go giving yourself rewards for brushing your teeth every day, right? But you can give yourself a reward for something that you're establishing as a habit just to make it more attractive to do it in the moment. You also want to make the behavior itself that you're turning into a habit super easy. I mean, just reduce friction. Like if you're learning to play the guitar, put the guitar in the living room. Don't put the guitar in the basement. Don't keep it in the basement. If you want to learn how to play the guitar and maybe you want to do that every day, don't make yourself go to the basement to pick up the guitar. I mean, you're much less likely to do it. Just like set it next to your couch, right? So if you're chilling on the couch, you can just grab it and start playing. It also helps to start really small. So a lot of people have the intention of, I want to, meditate daily. People tell me that's good. I want to do this, but I have trouble starting. If that's you, just start super, super small. I mean, do it literally for 2 minutes a day. Okay, like you're probably browsing social media for way more than 2 minutes a day, so that's not the problem. The smaller you start, the easier it is to get started. I also like to free up time. So let's say you want to build a habit of cooking healthy meals for yourself more often, as opposed to buying ready-made meals or ordering food. One thing you can do is actually, rather than trying to like find time in your existing schedule to do this, cut out something else and substitute this new behavior that you're turning into a habit. So in this case, you might say, rather than going to the grocery store to buy my food, I will actually have my groceries delivered to my house. That will free up time that I will then use to cook. So this is another strategy you can use just to make it easier to establish the habit. So finally, to make it easier to build these habits, you want to make the thing itself super satisfying. Now, initially, a new behavior that you're turning into a habit may not be satisfying. So like when I go to the gym and I see these guys that are extremely buff, right? And clearly they've been living in the gym for 5 years or 10 years already. They probably love being in the gym and working out. That's probably super, super fun for them because they're good at it, right? For me, I'm new. I've been going to the gym for a few months now. And yeah, it's a habit, but it's not super satisfying yet. I mean, it's getting there, but especially sort of maybe like a month or two ago, it was really something that I was still developing. And it wasn't necessarily satisfying. Like when you're new to weightlifting, like initially you're going to be really tired after every time after you do it. Not necessarily satisfying. So make it satisfying, right? Do something that makes you actually like want to see it through to completion, right? And one thing you can do is use a habit tracker. So a lot of people like to do this because they kind of have a chain. You can see, oh, I've been doing this X many days in a row, or I've been doing this 3 times a week for 12 weeks now. Another thing you can do to make something satisfying is just give yourself permission to brag about it to your partner, to a friend, or whatever. Be like, hey, I just wanted to share that I made it to the gym again today, and have people tell you, good job, good job. That's satisfying, right? Hearing that. And so when you think about it this way, your job is not to muster the willpower to do the thing you don't want to do, but your job is to make the behavior satisfying. So again, not willpower, but like being smart about it and tinkering and using strategies to actually make yourself more likely to do it. Okay, now to do number 2, whatever you want to turn into a habit, write out how to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Again, this is somewhat arbitrary. Don't get too hung up on these 4 things. It's really sort of a tickler, right? Just getting you to think about how you can make the whole process of building the habit easier, okay? But write it out, right? So get specific and come up with things you can act on, okay, to actually build the habit. And that's why we're going to now get to the 3rd part, which is the most important part that I really need you to pay attention here. This is sort of the key of the whole webinar, how to actually take action on this stuff. So again, most of you or many of you will know me because I teach about task managers, how to use them, how to set them up, workflows around task managers, just so you can be organized and productive. And what I see a lot, I'm working with someone one-on-one, or one of my students emails me, they have things in their task manager that are not tasks or projects. So they have things in their task manager that are goals. So for example, lose weight is in the task manager. Well, good luck if that's in your task manager. How are you going to do that, right? And habits also often go in there. So someone might have in their task manager the task journal. But let me ask you this. Would you create a task in your task manager that says brush my teeth? I mean, probably not, because that's already a habit for you, right? Let me give you another example. Get dressed in the morning. Is that going to be a task in your task manager? No, you're gonna get dressed in the morning. Unless like right now it's like tropical weather in Amsterdam and like it's really warm in your apartment, so you walk around in your underwear most of the day, like I do, except when I go to a webinar, I put on a shirt for you guys. But normally you get dressed, and so that's already a habit. You get dressed, you brush your teeth, so you're not gonna put that in your task manager, right? So things in your task manager are tasks and projects, but habits do not go in your task manager. Habits are automatic. Things that happen automatically, you don't need to manage them. They happen automatically, okay? So a task like titled meditate or journal or whatever, it won't actually make you do the thing. So on the one hand, like when it's already a habit, there's no point of having it in your task manager because it's happening automatically. On the other hand, when it's not a habit yet, having it in your task manager won't make you do it. So what do you do with your task manager when it comes to building better habits? A little bit more about what you don't want to do, actually. Task managers are not habit trackers. So this is something that I get a good amount of questions about. People say, Peter, how can I use OmniFocus or Things 3 or whatever to track my habit of meditating? I want to use OmniFocus to track when I meditated and when I didn't. And so my answer is don't. Don't use OmniFocus or Things or whatever task manager you're using for it. If you want to track your habit, download a habit tracker app. I mean, there's lots of them out there. It's not hard. Or grab pen and paper and just like start Xing on a sheet of paper. Task managers are not designed to be habit trackers. Don't try and use them that way. Okay. Here's what you do. Instead of listing the thing that you want, you list the supporting tasks that you can do to make it easier to establish the habit. Let me explain. Your task manager is to help you build the habit. There'll be tasks and projects in there for building the habit. So for example, you might create a project titled Build the Habit of Journaling Every Day, or Build the Habit of Doing a Weekly Review. That's the project in your task manager, right? And that project will have tasks that together will help you achieve that thing, which is to build the habit, okay? And so the tasks you put in there, again, you can use that nice framework that we took from James Clear, tasks to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying to do the behavior that you want to turn into the habit. May sound a little abstract right now. Let's do an example. Let's say you do want to build that habit of meditating. And again, I highly recommend meditation. If you do not already meditate, trust me, I mean, one of my students recently discovered meditation and he was emailing me like, 3 times in the first 5 days. He was like, I love this meditation thing. It's amazing. The most valuable thing. Blah, blah. So I should get some good testimonials for this. But yeah, you should meditate. Anyway, let's say you want to build the habit of meditating daily. Yeah. Create a project in your task manager, and it may be titled something like Build the Habit of Meditating for 10 minutes a day. And then you can start thinking, what can I do to make it easier or to increase the chance that I will actually build this habit, will end up with this habit? You can use the framework and think, how can I make it really obvious? Okay, I can meditate at the same time, same place every day. So I say, I will meditate for 10 minutes every day, first thing after breakfast. You can make it attractive, so you can kind of reward yourself, right? Saying like, okay, after I meditate for 10 minutes, I get to check the news. You're kind of going through this exercise, right? How do I make it easy to meditate every day? Download a meditation app. Go through the basics course. All you got to do every day is click play on the next part of the course, right on the next lesson. How to make it satisfying? Get an accountability partner. And after you meditated today, you tell your accountability partner, hey, I just finished my meditation. I'm proud of myself. And have them say, yeah, I'm proud of you too. Okay, so how do you translate that into your task manager? These are some of the tasks you might have. One task that may go under this project of build a meditation habit is write down my intention and display it on my office wall. So, you get a piece of paper, you write down, I will meditate at this time at this place every day, rip it out, paste it on your office wall. Now you're making it obvious. You're seeing it there, right? So this is the kind of thing that goes in your task manager. It's a task. Therefore, it goes in your task manager. You see, so your task manager, when it comes to habits, is really for those supporting things you do, the supporting tasks that make it more likely that you'll establish the habit. So it's not about the behavior itself. So there's no task, meditate, or journal. There's just tasks that you can do once and then complete to increase the likelihood that you will actually end up with this as a habit. Okay, so another task you might have is choose a reward for doing this behavior on any given day. That's a task. You choose a reward and done. For example, your reward is I get to browse Twitter for X many minutes, right? Another task might be choose and install a meditation app, or ask whether Jessica wants to be my accountability partner. So you're going about it in a really structured way and basically helping yourself to build the habit. That's what your task manager is for. So that's the third to do today, is for a habit that you would like to install, that you would like to create, or a bad habit that you'd like to get rid of. Create a project in your task manager and list some of those supporting tasks. Literally come up with things you can do, like do once and complete, to make it easier for yourself to end up with that as a habit. Okay, that's the key takeaway from this webinar, is use your task manager to support yourself as you're building this habit. And you can use that framework that we talked about earlier in part 2 of the webinar, right, as kind of ticklers, to come up with tasks that you can do to make it easier to build a habit. Okay, that's enough of me talking. Let's jump over to some Q&A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the slides. And if you have a question, please scroll down, find the questions box, okay? And then ask your question there. So don't ask your question in the chat, because it's quite difficult for me to take the questions out of the chat. And also, if you actually ask it as a question, what happens on my end is that I can see all of the questions listed, and then I can pick one question and I can click that I'm starting to answer it. And then for anybody watching the replay, it'll just show which question I started answering and when I was done answering that. So it's really handy for those of you watching a replay. Maybe right now you're live, maybe next time you're watching a replay. So be nice to the people that are doing a replay. So ask your questions in the question box below. I see a question right here from Miles, which is a long question, but let me start with that one. So Miles says, I hate to write, it slows me down, but a lot of my work is writing emails and reports. I put the writing off, I fall behind. How can I create a habit for doing something I hate to do but have to do? I've used your idea about breaking down what I have to write in things, and it's getting better, but it's still not disciplined and fast enough. How do I create a habit to write when I hate to write? Interesting, Miles. So, you know, why do you want to establish the habit? Okay, so you're saying that you have to do a lot of writing, for example, reports and whatnot. Why, like when you say, I want to build the habit to write, let's get really specific. What does that mean? Because I don't think of this as a habit. I think of this as, if I translate your question, it's really like, how can I be fine with doing this thing that I don't want to do? Which to me is kind of like, you don't want to do this thing, man. Maybe you should find a job where you don't have to do this thing, right? So, like when I get a question about establishing the habit of writing, it usually comes in a different shape. It usually comes in the shape of someone says, I want to publish novels. I'm currently not publishing novels, but I want to get into the habit of writing every day to become like a writer, an author, a novelist, right? How do I establish that habit? And we can definitely talk about that. But what I'm hearing from you is not something that I really think is a habit, is more like a preference. So I'm really asking like, oh, how can I change this preference that I have? Which to me seems like a bad strategy. To me, the strategy would be, don't do the thing that you don't want to do and find a job where you don't have to do that. Of course, there's all sorts of things you can do to write less. You can use speech to text things, which are getting better and better all the time. But that's why, to me, that question is not really about habits, Miles. So if you'd like to clarify that, just go ahead and ask a new question. And explain how I'm not understanding you correctly. But from what I'm hearing is like, how do I do something that I don't want to do? And my answer is don't do it. So, all right, Miles. Next question is from Vignesh, who says, what happens if your supporting tasks are not helping you make progress? How do you identify better or more impactful supporting tasks? Well, I'm a big fan of experimentation. This is true generally when it comes to life, but when it comes to being productive, being organized, including building better habits, you want to experiment. So if you are doing something that doesn't work, you'll have to change something. It's probably not suddenly going to start working, okay? So I understand your question, but the answer is you just have to come up with different supporting tasks, okay? Can you get a little bit more specific here, though? That would be my question to you. Can you, maybe you can do this in the chat, or just be a little bit more specific about what exactly is not happening, okay? So let's say you want to like make it a habit to spend 15 minutes a day on Duolingo to learn Japanese, okay? But it's not happening. Then you've done some things to try and make it easier for yourself. Maybe you've set reminders or whatever, but it's still not happening, okay? You just have to try different things. I mean, if it's something that other people are doing repeatedly, that other people have made it a habit, you can also make it a habit. It's just a question of finding the right things, and experimentation is really important there. Like it is really with anything related to productivity. Like if I tell you something and it doesn't work for you, you're gonna have to try something else, right? That's what I work. But again, if you want to ask me that more precisely, like if you want to tell me which habit is it that you're trying to build, what are the supporting things you've tried that didn't work, that would be a lot more helpful, because the more specific the question, the easier it is for me to answer it. So try and do that. On to the next one. Got Bill over here. Bill says, many goals are to do something less or to stop something. For example, the goal is to limit wine intake. He says, I love wine. It's my end of day reward. Structuring the tasks to limit to two glasses and not 3 or 4 as often creeps in. Of course, another would be to watch less news. Okay. Good question, Bill. So, well, I don't know if there's a question in there. I don't think there is a question in there, but let me just share my thoughts on this. So, okay. One of the things you can do to make the habit easier, when you're establishing a new habit, right, to make it easier is to make it easy. So conversely, if you want to get rid of a bad habit, you can make it more difficult. So in this case, if you're drinking too many glasses of wine, one thing you can literally do is make it more difficult for yourself. So that could be getting those tiny little bottles of wine that only fit 1 or 2 glasses, right? And have that in your fridge or wherever you keep it, I guess, depending on I know very little about wine. I do not generally like wine. Anyway, you keep that handy. And if you want more for special occasions, you have to go out to the shed or the wherever to get more, right? And see if that additional barrier of just making it a little bit harder for yourself to get to the larger quantity, if that works. And so a task that goes in your task manager is like move like all the wine to the shed, or like, you like buy smaller bottles of wine or something like that. That's an example of a supporting task that I would do if I were you. Again, it's all about experimentation. You got to see if this works. If this doesn't work for you, you may have to start taking more drastic measures, right? But that's the kind of thing that I would recommend that you do, rather than just sort of, again, relying on the willpower, just making it easier, or in this case, harder for yourself to do the bad thing. Yeah, because if you're just saying to yourself, you know what, I really shouldn't have that second or third glass of wine today, then you do have it because you're in a good mood. You're thinking, you know what, now I feel guilty. I did it again. I suck. I'm not the kind of person who can only drink 1 glass of wine or only 2 glasses of wine, add friction. You're saying it yourself. That's exactly what I would recommend. So be a little creative with how you want to add friction there. And also, again, start small. Let's say you're currently drinking 4 glasses of wine in the evening. Might be hard to go from 4 to 1, go from 4 to 3, or something like that. Generally making those smaller increments just increases the likelihood that it'll work. Yeah. Again, as I'm answering these things, if you want to give more context or information, welcome to do that in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on that. Yeah, and I see that Bill commented on his own question, said the question is, sometimes the goal is not to start or do something, but to not do something. Exactly. So you can just invert all those things that I talked about. And if you really want to get lots of good examples of how to do this, just go pick up James Clear's Atomic Habits. He really goes in depth on like the details of doing things like adding friction and whatever, right? So the key is, after you understand those things, and after you come up with some ways to make it, for example, harder for yourself, or to make it satisfying not to do the thing, yeah, or unsatisfying to do the bad thing, go add tasks in your task manager to actually take action on those. Don't just like understand and then let it sit. Okay, there you go. Ba, ba, ba. Next, I'm going to go to a question from Carmen. Carmen asks, I find myself starting new routines to create new habits. Mine is consistently exercise and meditate. I can do it for up to 2 weeks and then I fall off the wagon. How can I keep it up? All right, Carmen, that's a good question. One thing that I'd be interested to know is what exactly happens when you fall off the wagon. So let's say you're trying to build the habit of meditating. You can say you can do it for up to 2 weeks and then you fall off the wagon. So what is the thing that makes you fall off the wagon? Yeah. Like, how does that process happen is the thing that I'd be interested in. And so you can kind of refer to this framework. Bored. Carmen says I'm bored with it. Yeah, in the case of meditation or in the case of exercise, or maybe both. Good question. If it's really boring, I mean, make it more fun. It seems really obvious. So, like, there are certain types of exercise that I'm just never going to like. So, like, I'm not going to do them because it's just, I don't know. We all have different personalities. You like certain kinds of exercise. I like different kinds of exercise. If you find it boring and you've tried it for 2 weeks, and you find it boring, do something else. Like go join yoga classes with some friends. I mean, maybe that's more fun. Or join a CrossFit gym where you've got a bunch of other people and it becomes a social thing. In addition, maybe not right now. Maybe not. Don't go to a CrossFit gym right now after COVID, but when there's other people, and you can do it together with them, maybe that makes it fun, right? So if boredom is the problem, so really, I guess I'm trying to get you guys to think analytically. So you're analyzing as follows. I can start new behaviors before they quite turn into a habit. I drop off, fall off the wagon. Okay, why? And so if the problem is boredom, then go and do things to take away the boredom. So rather than saying, I give up, clearly, this is not meant for me. Okay, like what can you do? And so I really, really love thinking in terms of tasks because a lot of the times there are plenty of things you can do that will change results. So I think a lot of the times what people do is they try to solve all their problems in their head. Yeah. So, I cannot build this habit. And then, the solution is to label oneself as like, I am just not someone who exercises, or I just don't have the patience to meditate. So your solution is to sort of like give yourself a negative identity, really. And you're just trying to solve this in your head, and it's very hard to like actually get meaningful results this way. So instead, if you think, what can I put in my task manager? What is an actionable thing that I can do that I can physically be moving and doing stuff, right? I think that will help more. So Carmen says, sometimes it's just the fact that something gets in the way and I have to break the routine and I cannot get back to it. Yeah, that's a thing. So definitely get super clear on what the problem is. So if sometimes it's boredom, address the boredom problem. If sometimes your problem is that there's something else that has a higher priority, then your task may be to reprioritize. And prioritization is a very big topic, but so recently what I've been doing is rather than meditating once a day for 30 minutes, I now meditate twice a day for 20 minutes each. So in the end, I'm meditating more, but I'm splitting it up into 2 sessions. And my second session is at the end of the day. And sometimes I find it really difficult to do that because I also want to get to bed by a certain time. So there's sometimes kind of a friction. Like let's say I'm coming back from hanging out with people and I come home, it's already late. I kind of have to choose. Am I going to do my evening meditation or am I going to go to bed on time? And it does happen that sometimes I don't do my evening meditation. But rather than saying, oh, it happened again, I fell off the wagon, instead what I do is say, okay, I'm going to reprioritize. Tomorrow morning, first thing after breakfast, I'll do like a double meditation session or whatever, right? Or if that's not practical, I'll say, okay, I will literally put tomorrow's evening meditation on my calendar. Normally it's not on my calendar. I just kind of do it when it makes sense. But I will literally like put it on my calendar to make sure that I do it at that time, the same way I might put like an appointment with a friend or something like that. Yeah. So if the problem is lack of priority, make it more of a priority. one actionable way to do that might be like find space for it on the calendar. Yeah, again, hard to say. I think I don't like to speak in generalities because I feel like generalities don't really help too often. But get really specific on what your problem is, right? In a particular instance, is it that it is boredom? Is it you like sort of break the chain and then you don't have the motivation to do it again or something like that, right? But it could also be other things. You could also be like, you know what? The thing that I really hate about exercising is that I have to get to the gym every time and it takes so much time and I'm stuck in traffic and I hate being in traffic. Fine, do it at home, no traffic if you do it at home. Again, the solution really depends on the specific problem. So anyway, you're welcome to give more information, but I would get really specific and focus on what can I do, a one-time thing that I can do to make it easier for myself. Question from Stephen here. It's about meditation specifically. What tips do you have for someone with no meditation experience? I would say, Stephen, download either Headspace or 10% Happier. Those are two really good meditation apps. I also really like Waking Up by Sam Harris, also very good. Probably Headspace and 10% Happier, a bit more beginner friendly. They'll have a basics course. All you got to do is sit down on your couch or your chair or your whatever, start the basics course. They have for each of these apps has a free trial. Listen to the instructions and follow the instructions. It's that simple. That's totally what I would recommend. Absolute easiest way to meditate. They usually, most of these apps start out with like a 10-minute a day thing initially. So 10 minutes a day is really most people or anybody really should be able to find 10 minutes a day. One tip I would recommend is don't do it right after you eat food. Don't do it right after you eat a big lunch. You might fall asleep. Right after breakfast for me works because I've had my coffee, so the coffee is keeping me awake. Yeah. So try to do it early in the day too. Generally, an advice for what a tip of mine for whatever habit you're trying to establish that's not time bound. Generally, things you do earlier in the day, you're more likely to get to them. This is true for a lot of people, and that's not just true for sort of the things that you're trying to develop into habits, but any task or project that's important to you. It's important to you, try and do it earlier in the day because you're more likely to get to it. Anyway, that would be my tips there. Question from Miles again. Miles, who is about writing. Miles says, I have parts of my job I love. Writing is a part of every job, even just emails. I love the other parts, hate the writing parts. Almost every job these days will include writing in some way. So, by the way, I had a 20-year career in Hollywood as a writer. That's enjoyable, Miles. Yeah, but okay. So clearly this is bothering you. Clearly the fact that you have to do so much writing is really bothering you. Are there other ways that you can structure it? Can you go dictate stuff to an AI app? There's an AI app called Otter, like sea otters, that kind of otter. It will let you talk to it and then it will transcribe it. Can you do things that way, right? It may be a lot more fun. I do this a lot now. I'm sending a lot of my friends and connections audio messages rather than writing a lot because I also find it tedious to write. Sometimes it's nice to do the writing because it kind of forces you to reflect and stuff. But if you're doing too much, just try to do less of it, but still get the same results. So that would be my main question here. But again, I don't think this is really so much about habits, right? I think it's more about coming up with ways of not doing this particular thing that you don't want to do. You could consider it to be a habit building challenge if you're saying, you know what I want to get into is the habit of communicating more or communicating really efficiently or something like that. You can kind of like phrase it that way. So I would really follow the same approach of like creating a project for yourself in your task manager, and the project is figure out a way to spend much less time on a daily basis writing, and fill that project with little experiments that you can do to try. That's kind of how I approach my life as well. if I'm trying to figure out how to do something, I'll often create a project in my task manager called figure out how to do this. And I'll list things I'm going to try. I'm going to try them and keep track of what works. So that'd be my answer there. Question from Ngozi Young, who says, I'm sorry if you covered this already. I joined late. No, no worries. How many habits do you recommend that a person should work on at a time? And what are ways to track habits? Is habit tracking helpful? Okay. I do recommend trying to establish only one new habit at a time, or if you're trying to get rid of a habit, I would also really recommend doing only one at a time. Here's a good way to think about why that works. So my philosophy of building better habits, not just a philosophy, like this works, is really getting very intentional about thinking, how can I make it easier for myself? And that's going to involve you doing something. That's going to involve you taking actions to lay the foundation, make it easier for yourself to establish this new habit or to get rid of this negative habit. And because, so let's say my habit is, I want to make the habit of going to the gym 3 days a week, right? I've been doing this now, but a while ago, this was something that I was turning into a habit. It's not just the time that goes into actually showing up at the gym, doing the lifts, and then going home and stuff. There's also time involved in activities that I do to make it more likely that I'll succeed. So for example, I spent quite a bit of time reading about routines that are good routines to do for people who are new to weightlifting, like literally which exercises should I do when I'm at the gym? How should I think about this? How much protein should I consume? Okay, so I'm vegan, so naturally consuming a little bit less protein than people who are not vegan. So I was like, okay, I probably need to consume some extra protein. How am I going to get that into my diet? Turns out it's very easy. Takes like 2 minutes a day, water, protein powder, drink it. It turns out to be very easy. But so I had to do a little research on that. And so because when you're building a new habit, you may do some, or you will probably be doing some of those supporting activities to increase your chance of success. That's why I recommend doing only one at a time, because otherwise it's just a lot of stuff that you have to do. And you probably already have plenty of other things going on in your life, and you're just less likely to do the supporting activities that will give you a good chance of actually making this a habit. And that's really disappointing. So by doing it one at a time, you really can make the time to do it right. That's my answer. Okay, I do not see any more questions. So if you do have another question, now is the time to ask it very quickly. Otherwise, I will wrap up the webinar and tell you a little bit about the offer that I got for you guys today. So checking the chat, no questions. There we go. Cool. Pull the slides back up. Hate this. I always got to scroll all the way through the slides again. So you guys are going to have to bear with me as I do this. Wish I would remember where I was. And by the way, you guys can refer back to this after the webinar. So if you're like, oh, hey, I remember Peter said something useful, just the same link that you used to actually get into the webinar, you can watch the whole replay of the webinar afterwards. Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about my latest course, which is titled Big Picture Productivity. And this course is all about achieving your goals, by taking action on your goals and achieving them. So I created this course earlier this year because the first 2 courses that I created were all about managing your tasks and projects, really a day-to-day thing, really a week-to-week thing. And then people are asking me, but Peter, I have all these big goals. How can I achieve them? How can I achieve my goals? And like, how does that fit in with the framework that you're teaching about task managers? And so I created this course as an answer to that question. Be like, this is how you can, in a structured way, achieve your goals and be productive in a big picture sense, right? Not productive only in the way of like, hey, I checked 12 items off my task manager today. Congratulations, right? But productive in the sense of achieving what you want to achieve. So I created Big Picture Productivity. It's a self-paced course, consists of 5 modules. We've got dozens of video lessons, worksheets, exercises. Because I find that theory plus action is what gets you results. So it's not just me talking at you and that's it. It's me explaining something, you doing something. That's what delivers the result. The course comes with email support from me, of course. Within the course environment, you can ask questions and I can answer those. But most importantly, the course now comes with a community. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. The community is really new. So I launched this a few weeks ago, but we've already got some great activity going on, which I'm really excited by. So if you enroll in the course, you get to join the community. It's just a group of people who are your fellow students. Also, they're motivated. they're action-oriented, and we're sharing things that are to do with productivity. We're exchanging tips and techniques, inspiring each other, keeping each other accountable. It's really just a fun community to be in, a fun group to be a part of. And it really adds a lot of value to the course, honestly. So it's one thing to enroll in a course and to have videos, lessons, exercises, and workbooks, but you may have taken a course like that before and not done anything. I see this sometimes. People enroll in my courses and they don't do anything. It's something that I had to learn as a course creator. I'm not the only person who has this. It's like basically all course creators have this. There's a certain portion of the students that will enroll and like never watch a single lesson. They will not do a single exercise. How are you going to get results that way? And so I created the community because it's a way to massively increase the chance that you'll actually get the results that you're looking for. Because when you join the community, there is the accountability, there is the inspiration from other people, there's motivation. Plus, who knows, you might connect with some other cool people and make some new friends, right? So that's the benefit of having the community. So normally I list some testimonials at the end of these webinars to share with you what other people think about my course. But today I figured I'd do it a little bit differently, and I'll tell you what I think about my course. My opinion is you should really enroll in Big Picture Productivity because it'll make your life better. That's my opinion of my course. If you want to read what some other people have to say, you could go to the course page. I'll share the link with you in a second. But I figured I'd turn it around a little bit today. So because you're attending live, I also want to make you an offer, and that is that you get a bonus. Because I always want to reward you guys for showing up live. I mean, you can watch it later, but I like to reward you guys for showing up live. So if you enroll in Big Picture Productivity in the next 3 hours, in addition to the course with all its modules, worksheets, exercises, in addition to the community, support from me, now you get a bonus. And so the bonus is that you get to either also get access to one of my other courses. So you can say, hey, Peter, I want to get access to your Things course as well. That's included complimentary. Or, hey, Peter, I want to get access to your OmniFocus course as well. That's also complimentary. It's a $99 value that you're getting with the course. Or you could say, hey, I want to get a 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with you, Peter. And that's a $200 value. So if you enroll in the course in the next 3 hours, all you got to do is enroll in the course, send me an email right afterwards. And Peter, hey, the bonus I'm choosing is the Things course, the OmniFocus course, or the 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with you. There's a little bit of small print to the coaching session. If you scroll down under offers, you can see the small print. It basically comes down to you got to schedule it by a certain date. But that's it. And so in particular, I think the one-on-one coaching can be super valuable for you. So you can schedule that for, say, like 2 weeks from now. So you're going through the course, and then 2 weeks from now, we'll have a video session. You can show me your task manager or whatever. You can say, Peter, these are my goals. Like, I've been trying to set it up this way. What do you think? And you can get my direct feedback on that. And that'll be super valuable for you. Normally, I charge $300 for 90-minute one-on-one coaching sessions. You want to see my availability? There's a link that you can click just to make sure that there's a time that works for you. But you can also just email me and see if we can come up with a different time. Anyway, that's my offer for you today. Again, this is only valid if you enroll in the next 3 hours. Yeah, you can find the course over at bigpictureproductivity.com. There's also some more information there. You can see exactly what lessons are in the course. You can look at a couple preview lessons. That's it for today. Hope to see you inside the course. Hope to see you inside the community that comes with the course. Really lovely to see you there. I know many of you have known me for a while, and I would really love to see you joining the community. So thank you very much for attending today. Can't do these webinars without you, obviously. So, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And until next time, ciao.